Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us. So we are now live at BeyondX. I hope everyone is doing fine. Stay safe. And my name is Chirong. I'm from ONG&ONG in Bangkok.
Yes, I'm Daniel here from Digital Technology Director at ONG&ONG here in Singapore. So just a quick reminder to all the Zoom attendees, don't worry, your mic and cameras are disabled. If you wish to make a comment, click on the chat at the bottom left, right, as usual, and tell us where you're from and how you find this topic. If you want to ask questions, click the Q&A, I think at the bottom right, right? And yeah, the questions will be addressed after speakers' presentations.
So BeyondX is an annual design festival that showcases fresh technologies and speakers to inspire creativity and innovation. So where we invite the most prestigious speakers in their field to share knowledge and developments with the world. For this year, we've invited 10 speakers from diverse backgrounds to share their knowledge as we explore the ways forward with smart technologies and digitalization that can inform the future of the AEC industry. So
for today, for these 2 days, right? So we have a total of 8 sessions from 10 a.m. Singapore time until around 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So we have the first speaker today, session 1. Okay, Tejas Chavan. He's the Chief Computational Architect at Digital Blueform. Tejas develops strategies and methods for computational generative design and to develop urban and architectural solutions at his current firm, Digital Blueform. He's known for winning math competitions in India and Singapore, and this brings his passion for solving highly complex problems to his current role.
Please note that the audience questions will be addressed at the end of the session. So now let's please welcome our speaker, Tejas. Tejas, over to you.
Thanks, Chirong. Thanks, Daniels. So I'll be sharing my slides now.
Should we run the poll now, Tejas?
Sure, yeah. So hi all. My name is Tejas Chavan. I'm the Chief Computational Architect at Digital Blueform, and we are a startup in Singapore, and we build software for architects. So we take aspects of different design processes and we digitize them in new ways. So I'm originally from India, and the images I'm showing on this slide are from a temple near my city, which is about 1,200 years old. And this temple is actually a megalith. So it is carved out from a single rock, and it is directly cut into the mountain. And it is developed from top to bottom, which is very unusual. And this temple is what inspired me to study architecture. And as I went through my academics in architecture, I realized that today we do not have the skills or processes to build something like this. Despite our technological advancements, the knowledge, the craftsmanship that was used to build this, it no longer exists today. It is lost forever. So as a computational architect, I'm not directly involved in designing buildings, but what I do is that I write codes and recipes that generate designs in a virtual space. So in a way, my role is to accumulate and codify design knowledge and techniques so that they can be used by others in generative design. And that makes me wonder what I can call myself. Am I an architect? Or maybe I'm a curator of design strategies and techniques. Or maybe I'm even a historian, because I pull from and document recipes of different designs of how they were built in the past, how they are built today, and how they should be built in the future. So for me, I find generative design to be actually quite superficial. Because when we look into our past, we have represented form and space through many, many millennia. If we look at the cave paintings, which date back to even 10,000 years ago, what they depicted, the information they depicted was comparatively less. And they showed their daily life and rituals, and they used their hands as a painting medium. Their representations have survived for thousands of years, and they are very valuable today. In comparison, drafting and physical drawings are a more modern phenomenon. And this medium allows us to convey more knowledge and more data comparatively. But the duration for which this remains relevance is decreased. Then we see the arrival of tools such as CAD and CAM, where again, we package more volume of data and information. And maybe the relevance for this information is a couple of months or years. And now we have generative design. So generative design allows us to iterate and come up with data in information really, really fast. This data maybe survives for a couple of seconds because the speed at which it generates, and it is packed full of information. So within a couple of minutes, we're able to generate a vast volume of data. And that actually makes us numb because there is only so much data we can process. And this has brought us about a data crisis where we have so much data that we don't value it anymore, or we can't process it anymore. And I think in the design field, this needs to be addressed. So how do we deal with this information overload? Do we continue on the trajectory of the tools that we are developing today and the way we handle data? What we maybe need is actually a paradigm shift. Maybe we need to explore new ways of addressing these problems and question what our tools can do for us, question what our technology should be capable of. So just like the quote from Harrison Ford, should we be breeding faster horses, or should we be looking for something that is a bit more ingenious? So we know that the digital age is here to stay. I think the tools today need to play a more active and reciprocal role in our design processes. Tools can no longer be passive and inert. They can't just be simply chunks of predictable code. We need to go way beyond that. And the one way I think that is possible is for our tools to be absorbing the knowledge of architecture itself. Tools, I think, should become more tactile by embodying the crafts and processes that are innate to architecture. Tools can also advance the culture of dialogue, thesis, synthesis, and presentation that is at the heart of architecture. And the tools also need to impart insights and wisdoms by digesting the vast amount of data and knowledge that is available today, which is definitely tedious and impractical to do so manually. So I think designing and architecture are both a science and an art. So it is a science because we are dealing with construction, policies, and economics. And it is also an art because there is a lot of subjectivity and different processes involved. There is no single answer to the problem of architecture. It can be tackled in many different ways, and everybody comes up with their unique solution and proposals. And what that means is architects, through their years of practice and experience, develop intuition and tacit knowledge. So just like a sculptor or a carver, they have the individual style and unique ways of solving problems. And over time, this knowledge becomes subconscious and innate to their design processes. So what our technology and tools need to do is they need to look at how we can support and bring out this implicit knowledge. One way they can do so is we can look at design principles. Many of these design principles are rooted in fundamental techniques such as sketching, cutting, folding, and sculpting. These are the techniques that help designers bring out their tacit information, tacit knowledge, and hence I think they have stood the test of time. So even though we have many advanced tools available today, these traditional tools still reign supreme. And I think the tools of the future need to emulate these techniques and become more tactile. So they can become more interactive and adopt active engagement with the user. Let us take the example of a pencil. So this tool, that is the pencil, has already been digitized in the form of styluses and touchscreens. This traditional medium, if used in digital space, can bring up a lot of possibilities. So just the pencil can be used to signify different things. It can be used as a method to, let's say, draw an axis, or it can be used to signify how we want to subdivide shapes, or even mark certain zones such as parks, parkings, and so on. It can also be used at an urban level to map different sections of the different zones of the site. And it can also be, so the pencil, it can also be used as maybe a spray paint or a knife or a measuring tool or even an eraser, depending on the context. And based on what the user draws, the tool can take guidance and directions from the user and use it to inform the generative design process. This adds a level of personalization, intuition, and soul to an otherwise rigid generative design process. And what this also does is it creates this dialogue between the man and the machine. This encourages iteration in the design process, and our tools can employ a combination of different tactile elements. It could be a pencil, it could be sculpting tools that allow the user to manipulate the shape and form, just like they would do with physical models, like with blue foam. And by allowing them to move, rotate, cut, shave, skew, we encourage the creation of variations, which will in turn lead to better design. Next, I think our tools need to look at design and architecture as having a culture of dialogue. So in our profession, ideas, designs, instructions, techniques, they need to be communicated, they need to be discussed, they need to be challenged, and they need to evolve over time. And hence, I think the tools of the future also need to be communicative in nature. So this image is obviously pre-COVID, and we can see that communication and interaction is a big part of our design process. We share ideas not only through words, but through very tactile representations. These come in the form of diagrams, drawings, models, mood boards, maybe renderings and animations, and so on. Many people are involved in this design and construction process, which makes effective communication and collaboration extremely important. So what the tools of the future need to do is they need to explore how can they allow us to collaborate better? What are the crucial aspects and key principles that they need to pick up to enhance collaborative design? Let us take a look at some tools that are available today in terms of Zoom or Google Meet. These are video chatting platforms, but what they are able to do is, if we look at our team at Digital Blue Foam, we have adopted remote working since last year, and many of us are in different time zones. And yet, these video calling platforms make communication so seamless and effortless that we think that it is very natural to talk to someone through a video calling platform. And what we need to look at is how can this type of technology be translated to design collaboration. And I think there are a few principles that are crucial to be adopted for virtual design to be effective. And the first principle that is important is that of real-time collaboration. So any kind of modification or design that happens in a virtual space should be reflected to all participants in real time. So this is the way we can promote dialogue and debate and allow people to truly interact as if they were in a studio itself. And that is how it will feel natural and organic. And the second aspect of virtual collaboration is, I think it should play to its strengths. So a virtual space is not confined by the limitations of the physical. So it can have features that are impossible in the real world. For example, the tools can actually be very playful. They can have certain avatars. They could assign magic properties to certain elements, or even come up with features such as attaching post-it notes to anything and being able to fly through the virtual space. So because they are not barred by the limitations of the physical, they are able to provide a collaborative space that can be more value adding than merely physical collaboration. Next, I think, is the aspect of decision making and discussion. How can our tools help us communicate our designs and their properties? And how can they help us make choices easier? So what tools need to do is they smartly need to curate and package data. They need to understand which data should be included and excluded. So if we have certain designs, how should they be presented such that it makes choosing between different options easier? I think this is also an important part of communication and presentation that tools should look into. Tools should also consider the paralysis of choice. When presented with too many design options, it can lead to indecision on the user's side. So it is important that our tools are able to package and tabulate this data in a meaningful and digestible manner. Next, I think tools should make retrieval of information very, very easy. One example that comes to mind is the flamboyant birds of paradise and how they communicate information. So they have very colorful feathers and with very specific patterns. And they are able to communicate their intent through intricate dances, and often their partners don't need to do anything. They simply need to choose. So that is something that our design tools can do also. Because we create so much information, the tools should be able to perform intricate calculations on the fly and present all this information in a very readable manner so that it is easily decipherable for our user, and it makes the process of choosing very simple. Next, we can look at knowledge as wisdom and how technology can impart insights to the designer. So this is an example from my thesis. And we discuss how data overload is a major problem that architects face today. So oftentimes data cannot be processed manually, but it can be studied using machines. So by feeding the machines with data and guiding them, we can find patterns, and we can draw useful inferences from this information. The example that I'm showing here is actually a sample data set from Singapore CBD. And it looks at how floor plate areas of buildings vary according to their program. And just by looking at this sample data set, we can make certain inferences, such as residential buildings have the smallest areas on average, or offices have the least spread of area, so the range is smaller, or maybe commercial buildings have the highest variation. But how do we employ this data? So inferences like this can be used to make certain decisions. For example, using the data that I previously showed, using the patterns that we have seen, we can actually predict what type of program would be best suited for, let's say, some computationally generated organic floor plates. So using different inferences and analysis, we are able to make decisions like this in a more informed manner. We can also use insights like these to make recommendations. So automated studies can be conducted to understand the genius loci of the site, the spirit of the place. Technology can look at aspects such as building data, road networks, nearby amenities, and also the social sentiment for a context and a neighborhood, and make recommendations on what are the most suitable strategies that should be adopted while designing in that particular locality. It can also help. It can also take a step further and recommend us on how we can make things better. For example, maybe a neighborhood needs certain amenities that we can find are lacking through this type of analysis, and we can recommend, the tool can recommend them to the user, or it can recommend on where things should be placed to improve aspects of the neighborhood, such as walkability. So in conclusion, I feel that architects are facing an information crisis, and the solution for this is not to simply make a better CAD or parametric software, but to fundamentally rethink our tools and our relationships with technology. So we can do that by tapping in directly into the knowledge of architecture itself. So our tools need to be more tactile, they need to be more immersive and interactive. Our tools also need to be more communicative and simple to use. They should almost become invisible and natural, almost matter of fact. Lastly, our tools need to be more opinionated. They should give us insights and perspective and ultimately help us to design better. So I hope you found this presentation insightful and thought-provoking, and we can move on to the discussion.
Okay, thanks, Tejas, for your presentation. It's great. Yeah, so we from your presentation, I think there are three key things, right? The craft, the cultures, and the wisdom. I mean,
Yes.
the evolutions of tools from pencil to stylus and touch, you know, all this with the tablets and all that, right? Designing in seconds using computational design, you know, dialogue between man and machine that, you know, we respond to give more informed decisions to the designers or to the architects. That's how it is, right? I mean, that's
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
it leaps beyond the traditional ways of, you know, like pen and paper, where, you know, there's no response on pencil cannot respond to you. I mean, machines can tell you or give you some feedback at least, right? Yeah. And the way the culture now is kind of changing with this kind of tool, because we can actually do more collaborations, you know, decision making is become more interactive, you know, with all these collaboration tools. And perhaps is the last one would be, as you said, like, you know, the designing with data, that is very important now, because is that will give more, again, is informed decision for the architects and perhaps master planners, for the city planners, and, you know, all these projects, right? And give some predictions of weather, sustainability factors, and all this kind of stuff. I think machine learning or ML is kind of a powerful tools to complicate. I mean, to complete the whole journeys of design process and project deliveries. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you, Tejas, for the presentation. Actually, I particularly like the historical references and this idea of the evolution of this constant innovation for new tools. I mean, the role of a designer has always been very much linked to humanity of people and how people live, how people work, how they play. I mean, the hot button topic this year would be most definitely the pandemic. And as toolmaker, what sort of trends that you might have experienced over the last year when dealing with the pandemic situation that requires this new, whether looking back at the toolbox and looking at it and considering, okay, do I repurpose this tool, or is there a need to innovate a new tool in order to deal with this sort of emerging trends?
Yeah. So I think this trend was in the making, because there is more globalization now. We are collaborating with teams that are across borders, but I think it was really elevated and made prominent with the pandemic, because now people had to work from home. And how do you collaborate? Especially design is such um, a an interactive process. There has to be dialogue. There is thesis. You come up with ideas. then you reject those ideas, then you combine those ideas. And through this process of iteration, you come up with the final solution. And oftentimes teams are involved. It's not a solo process. So then it becomes very important of how can a tool be able to make this part of communication seem very seamless, natural, and almost invisible. What the tool should do is should almost become invisible. In a virtual space, it should feel natural. Just like how I'm talking to you now, it feels very natural, but we are so far away, right? So how can architectural tools do that? And that is why I thought one of the important aspects for that to happen is it needs to be real time. It needs to happen immediately. So we need a virtual space where we can control things, where we can modify objects, designs, we can critique objects, and that is all happening in real time. So let's say if I have a particular design and I'm changing certain aspects of it, maybe I'm changing the facade. So that needs to be reflected in uh, other participants and amongst my colleagues almost instantaneously. Then that barrier becomes invisible, and then you are truly able to work together. And what happens is the good thing is in a virtual space, you go beyond the physical. So let's say in a studio environment where you are dealing with physical models, there is a bit of a lag time. Let's say if I want to change the shape, I have to physically, let's say, make a new model. But in the virtual space, that process can be sped up very quickly. So it actually accelerates our decision making and iteration process. So let's say if I want to see, okay, if this particular building, what if I add 2 more floors to it? I can do it in an instant. And then that allows us to discuss and iterate very quickly within our colleagues what are the merits and the demerits of designs. So I think that is the power of virtual space, is that it can become real time, and it has properties that are it has that takes it beyond the physical realm.
Okay. Well, from the pool that we published earlier, we can see that since you're talking about this speed, right? I mean, like we can design faster and all this. Now, looking at the questions that we asked earlier here, what is the typical durations of developing an architectural design proposal, for example? I mean, most of the audience actually answered is about 1 or 2 weeks. So.
Mm-hmm.
How this so-called virtual space can actually improve from the current 1 to 2 weeks kind of exercise to become, I don't know, something that lesser is in days or perhaps in hours, or as you can see, I mean, things are, with computers, right, are supposed to be faster, I guess. But I guess but the same token, I think the a lot of front-loaded effort needs to be put in, right? I mean, as you know, like with BIM, building information modeling with BIM, for example, a lot of information needs to be put in up front. Will this be the same with the platform that you have, or so-called virtual space that you're talking about?
So maybe I can start by telling how our tool handles it. So one of the aspects it looks at it is the collection of information. So there is a lot of data that is already available online, and what our tool does is once you have demarcated a site, it pulls from different data sources. This could be data sources related to building information. It could be data related to contextual, sustainability, weather related information, and it pulls together in a single environment. And so a lot of the front loading that may be manual, such as contextual analysis, we try to optimize it we try to optimize it. So a lot of the collection of data and setting up of a template actually becomes instantaneous. So you can mark a site and it will pull all this data together, and it is presented to you in a 3D environment. And the next part is about how this data is presented and how you can generate within it. So I think it is important for a tool to present this data in a meaningful manner. So it could be about, let's say if you generate a design, how easy it is to get analysis out of it, right? So if you want to visualize the sun or the radiation or wind studies, it should happen almost seamlessly at the press of a button. And I think we also need to look at the different stages of design and the level of detail that you would want to work at. So at an initial stage, you want to go through a lot of iteration, right? So let's say for a particular site, you might be exploring whether I should go for a high-rise, high-density option or a low-rise, low-density option. So to allow you to do that, you need to be able to do that just by tweaking a few parameters. So
Okay. Yeah, sure.
No, I think Daniel and Tejas, you're both right. Is that one of the difficulties we face as designers is communication. Sometimes when we're talking about global warming or we're talking about the rising sea levels, climate change, the implications are just too big, too mind-boggling to be able to, for our stakeholders in a project, the client, the other consultants, to be able to visualize. And I think there's a very important aspect of the tools we use as designers. Maybe like just what would you say will be like some of the tools that you have in order to communicate this sort of the implications with regards to sustainability?
Thanks, Chigam. So in terms of sustainability, we understand that there has to be a lot of emphasis on sustainability. If we look at UN, they have actually given us a deadline for irreversible climate change, and that is actually within a couple of years. So it's a high alert moment actually, and that's why we have sustainability at the core of our principles. And just like how we make data available very readily, we make different sustainability analysis available very readily also. So we have components such as solar analysis. So let's say if you want to visualize the movement of the sun and how shadows are being cast, that is something that can be done very easily in the tool. And it is accurate for that location because what we do is when we are collecting data, we also understand the exact location of the particular site. So based on the latitude and longitude, we are able to accurately simulate the movement of the sun and the shadows that are being cast. And then so first would be about the ease of simulation. So to be able to do that, we can simply click on one of the sun buttons and it will animate it for you. And the next part would be the packaging of that information. So how can we download this type of information in easily digestible reports? So that's where, let's say if you have a particular design, you can download different reports for it. So it will give you indication in terms of, let's say, shadow analysis, solar radiation analysis, wind studies, and so on. So one thing would be making this analysis very easily and readily available, and also making it real time, because it should be part of the design process. It should not take, let's say, a solar analysis should not take a couple of hours because it disrupts the design process. It needs to be instantaneous, so we can make changes based on that analysis. So first would be making it readily available, and the second is packaging it such that that information is very easily readable in terms of reports.
Okay.
Right. Maybe one last question in terms of, well, Southeast Asia is pretty big, right? You've got the continental part of it with Cambodia, Myanmar, Laos, and Vietnam.
Yeah.
We have this the archipelago or the island part, maritime part of it. When we talk about data, it's perhaps maybe you can share what sort of efforts is going into building up this sort of data that would then be available for use, on in the broader region.
So for digital blue form, we are not restricted to any site. You can choose any location and it will pull data from various different sources. So as a base template, we pull data from sources such as Mapbox, OpenStreetMap, Foursquare, weather station data. So it will find the nearest weather station for you. And it will collect data such as wind directions. And we also collect data from uh, social check-ins such as Foursquare. So we see different sentiments on the site, and that forms the base template. And that is not restricted to any region. That can be done for Singapore, where there is tremendous amount of data available, or to even like a remote island. And whatever data that is available, it will be pulled in. And we understand that there needs to be flexibility in terms of the way architects design. So a lot of times they have their own, let's say, survey data or other types of data that they might want to employ. So what we have done is we provide a base template, and beyond that, users are able to import their own data and use it to augment what is already available. So they can simply drag and drop files such as, let's say, 3D files or 2D files, and that can be used to supplement and inform the designs as well.
As they say, knowing is half the battle. So communicating it is the next the next half.
Okay, we asked audience also the second questions, second pool now. Maybe I'll just end this thing now and see the result. Okay, so question was about which of the following guides your design process. Okay, so most of them are actually answer. I mean,
All of them.
all of them. Yeah.
It's a trick question.
Yeah. Easy answer. Easy answer. We need all of this, right? I mean, definitely
Yes.
we need the experience, practice, intuitions, and all of these that we learn in architectural schools, for example, right? And all the insights from contextual data. I mean, this is the one that I think the machines can help us, right? The second point.
Yeah.
And then the third point is also the machines and the computers and all these computational design can help the architects to formulate the design outcome. Yeah.
So so these processes are time and tested. So we have experience, we have intuition, we have contextual data. These are time and tested processes, but it may not be. What tools can look into is actually making these processes very seamless and very easy and also fast. So everybody does analysis and simulations, but we know it takes time or it needs a certain level of expertise to do so. We should not be. We should be focusing on design, right? We should be focusing on creating something, challenging it, modifying it, comparing, and then iterating over and over. That should be the role of the designer. So we want to make it very readily accessible. So analysis should be very easy to do. So it might be just pressing on like a sun icon or a wind icon, and then you get the data immediately. So designers need to be able to perform these different analysis or insights very readily. And that is where the tools of the future can come in, that they make these seem very natural and seamless. And yeah.
Okay, maybe now is the time to take a look at the Q&A from the audience at the Q&A box. Okay, so the first one, perhaps. Okay, so agree on the paralysis of choice for generative design. At what point should there be human intervention in a generative design process? Could machine learning be used to filter those choices, or also can, if this could be done, or what would then be an architect's role? I mean, it's kind of questioning what the architectural roles in the future then, right?
So when should there be human intervention? I think from the start. You shouldn't let machine do everything. So, and that is why I think the tools need to have interactive features. So there needs to be it should not be left to the machine. There needs to be a dialogue between the man and the machine. And the way to do so, like one example would be the use of like augmented tools such as pencils. So the pencils could apart from being merely representations, they could actually play a role in the generative process. So through his intuition, experience, and what he has learned through the practice, the designers can actually guide the generative process. And so in this example, we can see that how drawing different ways of subdividing the site creates variation in design that is by nature generative. And that allows this whole plethora of exploration to happen, which is not possible purely through manual means or purely through generative means. So this is where the confluence happens. And we think that there should always be a dialogue between the man and machine. So the man should guide, and then the machine will create. And the designer, the user, uses his experience to guide the machine, and the machine does what it's able to do best, which is compute. Yeah.
Okay, so if I can see from this quick videos on the screen, right? I mean, like it's kind of saying that, okay, we have this one site area and divided by 6 slots, for example, then please give me the options of massing studies for these 6 slots, or 4 lots or something, right? Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah. And the user can also guide it in terms of targets, like what should be my GFA, what are the programs that I want in this particular design, or what type of typologies I want to use. Okay, maybe I want to use a podium and tower typology. So each block could be populated with that, or it could be a mix. It could be maybe some low-rise buildings and maybe one single tower. So these kind of design intentions should be communicated to the tool, and then the tool will propose you options based on your guidelines. And then we have that dialogue between the man and the machine.
Okay, well, that's good. So, and this also linked up with the plot ratio, GFA, and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And that will brings us to the next question from another person here, right? Compared to existing procedural design tools like, for example, Grasshopper, Dynamo, and all these kind of computational tools, right? What advantage over them does the digital Blueform bring apart from future collaborations? Also, what's the advantage over other instantaneous cloud platforms such as, for example, SpaceMaker.ai? What do you think?
So I would answer in 2 ways. First, I will tell about Grasshopper and Dynamo. So I think for Grasshopper and Dynamo, it is these are great tools, but it needs a certain level of expertise to use them. So there is already a certain barrier to entry. So you need to learn Grasshopper, you need to learn Dynamo, you need to be familiarized and have certain maybe a few years of experience in scripting or in creating these algorithms for you to be able to generate meaningful design. But for us, it is we want to eliminate that. We want to be able to have a very natural way of working with a tool. So that's why our focus on the designer guiding the algorithms through different aspects such as drawing or spray painting or setting targets. So that is one. And if we look at, so the second part is that has been our focus to make the user experience feel very natural and making the tool very accessible. And our motto is we always want to have a tool that you can learn within minutes and not within years. So that allows designers to focus on what is important, and it allows for exploration. And the second part I would say is maybe to some extent, traditional scripting lacks that level of interaction with the algorithm. So your algorithms might produce certain designs that are within its domain of definition. So it may not be able to generate something that comes from human guidance. Yeah. And our tool is real time, it's online, and it's our aim is to make it super easy to get started. Actually, some of you might be wondering how whether the tool works in a silo, whether we can connect to other tools such as maybe Rhino or Revit. So of course, interoperability is very important. It can't work in a silo. So we have a connection to BIM. So whatever you generate, it can be taken to your choice BIM or CAD software.
Okay, so interoperability is not really an issue here with the platform that you mentioned, with the digital platform, basically. Yeah, because I saw another in the chat box, another audience actually asking about I guess the comparison and advantages, and perhaps also eventually interoperability with SketchUp, for example, Safari, and also BIM's Hatchback, for example, right? Things like this is, I think, interoperability, I think, is always a question, because when we're doing BIM, when we're doing all this modeling, right? I mean, how are we going to transfer all this information, not just the geometry, but also the information inside the object to another platform?
Yeah, it is very important for us, and we understand that we cannot work in a silo. So through our interactions with our users, we have built both import and export capabilities. So as I was mentioning before, you can bring in your data, you can bring in your certain designs and so on into the tool, and also you are able to export it to your production software. So we understand that it should not disrupt your existing workflow. It should simply augment it.
Okay, I think we...
I think Tejas, actually, I would just like to share that this ability to iterate very quickly will most definitely serve the designers very well. After all, at the end of the day, we are living in a very complex and sometimes uncertain world, and this sort of capability will most definitely augment the designers' abilities to understand the situation in a very intuitive manner. But so I guess that's all the time you have left.
Or maybe just one question,
one more question
from the Q&A here. I mean, I think all right. I think users is asking whether can provide solution to the existing design, for example, like rain splash and the corridors. I think that's the question.
Sorry, I need to see the question again. Can you to existing such as?
I guess it's probably in terms of the level of detail that this sort of analysis can go down to. You've got it at right now. What we're seeing from the slides is a more at a urban
early stage, urban and early stage. So for us, because the tool is in real time, what we do is we are looking at an early stage of design, and we allow for a lot of iteration through exploration of blocks, massing, program assignment, and you can have more indications such as you can specify facades, you can specify pores, and so on.
Okay. I think we're running out of time already. I think we're over about 5 minutes. So maybe time to wrap up.
Right. So thank you to Tejas for your presentation. Very informative, and certainly brings the point across about this sort of need between the man and machine interface to be strengthened, to allow designers to intuitively understand the complexities of the sort of urban environment. And thanks to Daniels for co-moderating, and especially thanks to our audience. So please go ahead and check the event schedule for the next event and for over the next 2 days. And I hope it will be as interesting and informative as the one that we just had this morning. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Stay
Chiron. Thanks, Daniels. It has been a
Thanks.
pleasure, guys. Yeah.
Thanks, Tejas, for joining us for this first session. I mean, 10 o'clock in the morning. I mean, it's first one. It's good. I mean, this platform is, I think, it will bring us, I mean, we got to change our mindset of design, right? I mean, as an architects and all that, we have to adapt to the new things, new technologies, and all that, so we can design better. I think this is a great things, Yes, for everyone's also, I would like to say thank you for all the audience and who actually already spent time for the last, almost an hour now, okay, with us to listen to this discussion. So don't forget to keep tuning in for the next session. I think we have another session at 11:30. Another interesting and will be exciting conversation as well with the next speaker, right? So and also please, if you have friends or colleagues that still would like to join, I think we still open the registration. Just click on the website, go to the website beyondx.digital, click the registration button there, and then just tuning in to the next sessions. And and also we have a session later in the afternoon as well, and also tomorrow. Okay, thanks everyone. Thanks
Thanks, guys. Have a good day.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye.